Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome back to College Football Red Zone, where we could dive into all 138 FBS programs from that 50,000 feet perspective, give you some thoughts about the roster, give you my record prediction as of how things stand in the post-spring timeline, and very excited to kind of dive into the ACC a little bit more, as today we had the very nice 69th ranked team on the docket for this one. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one of our first ACC teams. We did talk about Boston College earlier. Now we're going to talk about another ACC team, and this one being the Stanford Cardinal. So hopefully you guys are excited for this one. If you are, make sure you go ahead, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. And let's go ahead and get things rolling here with this Stanford Cardinal football team. And right from the jump, you do have maybe one of the more unique head coaching hires in Tavita Pritchard, who is going to be named your brand spanking new head coach. And this is a guy that does not have a ton of coaching experience. He's a relatively young guy, only 39 years old. And if you really look at his pedigree in terms of his coaching history, he really has only been an offensive coordinator or a head coach at one time in his coaching career. That was when he was the offensive coordinator and the quarterbacks coach from 2018 to 2022. Last few years after that, he was the quarterback coach for the Washington Commanders, and now he's back here at Stanford. He is a Stanford man through and through. He was a quarterback on the Stanford roster from 2006 to 2009. So you look at Tavita Pritchard, and at least from a fit standpoint, the fit is certainly there, right? Because no one is going to understand Stanford football better than a man that has been directly a part of Stanford football and was a part of some days where this program was seeing a lot more success than what they were having now. But the thing is, you're looking at a very young head coach for FBS standards and someone that doesn't have a lot of experience outside of Stanford University. So how is that going to turn out? It's a little bit of a bold strategy, but we'll see if it works out. This is going to be his first year. And at least in his first year, he is going to be working with a roster that is a little bit better than what was had this time last year. I do expect that this team is going to look better in the trenches, whether it's Aiden Killstrom being an interior offensive lineman that they transferred in from Harvard, so an extremely smart kid and definitely has some starting potential, or at the very least can be a rotational player for the Stanford Cardinal offensive line, and that was a major point of weakness for this football team last year. So if he does develop into a starter over the course of the rest of his offseason, that's going to really help in terms of being able to have more flexibility of what you want to do on the offensive side of the ball, because they did also bring in a couple of nice playmakers in the transfer portal. I like the addition of Davion Godley, who comes from Weber State, and he had a nice year for the Weber State Wildcats where he had over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. Nico Brown might be the prized possession. No, Nico Brown is an absolute stud in every sense of the imagination. Over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns in the 2025 campaign. Really tore things up in the Ivy League as well. And so Nico Brown could be someone that absolutely not only will start, but I think could teeter on being a star in this Stanford offense that's going to need a new focal point, because Sam Roche is no longer with the program. But don't worry, he did not leave for the transfer portal or anything like that, because Sam Roche is an NFL player now. So they're going to have to replace an NFL player. Sam Roche was the vocal point in this offense. So that is it's nice that they brought at least a couple of weapons that will help ease the loss of a Sam Roche from a passing game perspective. And then I think defensively, I think this defense is going to be a touch better as well. Matt Rose is bought back as a stud linebacker. He is left over from last year under the previous regime and was a second team All ACC player in spite of everything else that was going on around this program over the course of last season. Plus, they also added Leroy Bryant, not to be confused with Leroy Jenkins, obviously. Transfers in from Washington, plays some good quality football for the Washington Huskies last year, multiple interceptions. And so, being able to get Leroy Bryant from the transfer portal, that's going to really help on the defensive end as well. So, for me overall, besides losing San Roche, this is going to be a better football team than last year. So that is going to that's a positive. But even with those improvements, I do want to make this clear that this is a rebuild. And Tabitha Pritchard is going to be someone where he's going to need at least a couple of years to get this thing turned around, especially given that Stanford has restrictions just in terms of who they can go after, not just in high school recruiting and not just in the transfer portal as well, because Stanford, as you may know, is one of the best academic schools in the country. So that's going to be something that they're always going to have to work around. But it is a better football team, I think. And I think that this team, while it may be a year away from being able to participate in a bowl season, I do think that there at least is a type of year where if you see signs of progress from some of the younger players, that's a successful season. So I'm not really expecting a lot in the confines of the ACC. And let me show you what I'm talking about in terms of how I have things breaking down on their schedule. And so I'll pull up the schedule graphic now. And so there is a couple of safe ones here. The Elon game, for example, in the middle of the season, not to be confused with the CEO of Twitter, but they should win the Elon game. And then I do think Stanford does get revenge on Hawaii. This game is going to be at home. They are improved in the trenches. I think that improvement in the trenches is going to tip things in their favor. And mind you, Stanford almost beat these guys last year in spite of going on the road to play them. So I do think that this is a game that they should win as well. And there's a couple of games there where they can surprise a couple of teams as well that I think could have solid seasons in their own right. You get Georgia Tech at home. Georgia Tech is going to have to travel across the country to go and play you. So, from that aspect, at least Stanford has that working in their favor. And because of the fact that Georgia Tech has to travel across the country to play you, that does at least give you a puncher's chance. And really ditto in terms of NC State later on in the season as well. Same principle as what I just mentioned for Georgia Tech. Because of the fact that they have to travel across the country to play you, and they're not necessarily very good to elite football teams within this conference. You have fighting chance against that particular team. But I mean, many of these road games, I mean, I'm not really counting on them to perform very well in road games this year. Even the Miami game at home, I would be surprised if that game does end up being competitive, to be honest with you. And that's dittoed for SMU. SMU seems to be an incredibly talented football team as well. So right now, I do have them at 2-10. But again, I mean, if this is a year where they get to that 4-8, even maybe surpass things a little bit and get to 5-7, I think that's an incredibly successful year, given how my expectations are for Tabitha Pritchard in year number one. And then starting next year, then maybe you could start talking about, okay, let's get ourselves positioned to make a bowl game in 2027 and build from there. So very curious to hear your guys' thoughts on the Stanford football program. If I'm too high on these guys or too low, definitely let me know down in the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. But for now, I do have the Stanford Cardinal ranked 69th in the country with a 2-10 record as of how things stand in the post-spring apparatus. But for now, this is Jake from College Football Red Zone signing off. If you enjoyed this video, don't make sure you hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. With that, this is Jake from College Football Red Zone signing off. Hope you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.